It's 2025, 30 years since Casper found himself in cinemas for his feature film debut, and 80 years since the first cartoon theatrical short featuring the character, the Friendly Ghost. Over the decades, Casper has appeared in over 50 theatrical shorts, multiple television series, a ton of comic books published by Harvey Comics, and even more movies, though primarily direct-to-video and DVD.
As for video games, well, Casper would remain dormant until 1995 when the movie breathes a bit of new life into him, if that makes any sense given his circumstances. But anyway, we get a ton of video games based on the movie, or at least partially based on the movie, across multiple systems. Now, one thing I do need to say is it was pretty difficult to find a definitive list of Casper games. It was difficult to find a definitive list of Casper games just based on the movie alone, let alone in total. And every source I find has a different release date and all kinds of different minor details, so I'm going to try my best to get through every game in chronological order. And we're going to start from the top with what I believe is the first ever video game based on Casper.
Casper, big brainy book on PC, released sometime around 1995 probably, and was developed by Knowledge Adventure, who primarily dealt in educational titles and simple games aimed at young children, with Big Brainy book mainly meeting that latter criteria.
Let's read!
It's a simple interactive storybook. You could almost relate it to what we would today call a visual novel, just in a very primitive and early form. You progress through the story page by page, with each page representing a scene from the movie. Gameplay is fairly minimal. You point and click on objects within the scene to trigger short animations that are more often than not totally unrelated to the story itself. They're just there to amuse kids and prolong the experience. Very occasionally, you'll get a very simple minigame, like a jigsaw puzzle or spelling game, which when beaten will show you a short clip of the movie as a reward. There's not much more to say. It's very much a product of its time. This is the kind of stuff that I was playing as a very young child, and just brings me back to the early days of CD-ROM gaming. Personally, I enjoyed the nostalgia, but getting it running on modern PCs today requires a virtual machine with an old OS. It's just not really worth the hassle.
Hey Casper, check out this dress. I'm throwing a Halloween party for my friends at school.
Great! I won't even need a costume.
We head into 1996 for a number of games now, and we'll start with Casper, published by Interplay, who still exists, believe it or not, and developed by Famicom, probably best known for Conan Exiles. I'll be playing the PS1 version, though it was also available on the Sega Saturn and on the 3DO. This starting sequence is bringing back some memories for sure. This will be the only game in the video that I have actually played before. I'm even getting some nostalgia from the menu screens. I like how even the menu options are supposed to be ghosts, like they're made of ectoplasm or something. The game roughly follows the plot of the movie, with the story delivered in fairly basic but voiced over still images. Nothing special, but it does the job.
House. I wonder if she'll be my friend.
It's often listed as an action-adventure title, but it's closer to a puzzle-adventure. Playing as Casper, you effectively go through a series of elaborate fetch quests, whilst exploring the manor, which in true video game tradition is massive and complicated, with no logic to the floor plan whatsoever. To navigate this architectural maze, you will have to find colour-coded keys to open corresponding doors, find hidden switches and buttons, solve basic sequence and item-based puzzles. Nothing too wild, but the manor is so massive that with so much backtracking involved, it's easy to forget where you were and where to go when you find certain items that need to be used in certain places. So getting lost is going to be part of the experience. Completing a jigsaw puzzle on a wall will unlock a morph ability. Generally, these will grant you access to otherwise locked areas of the manor. Some of these areas have no connection to any other room, which begs the question what purpose they had when everybody was alive. Not to mention how they ended up filled with keys and sandwiches. If you want to have a bit of extra fun, you can activate the cheat that lets you fly over the walls and go out of bounds. It totally ruins the game, but I like to think of it of how it should be experienced. I mean, why can't Casper just go through all the walls and locked doors anyway? I thought he was a ghost. It will be more than just a few puzzles and locked doors getting in the way of your exploration. The ghostly trio will regularly harass you, oftentimes taking the form of the closest thing this game has to a boss fight.
Smellogram for Casper.
Most of these counters are unwinnable until you find a specific item, and then they'll quickly become trivial.
I found one of the missing Lazarus.
These boss fights are one of the small handfuls of ways that you can lose life, which is restored through the mass of old food lying around on the floor throughout the manor. For a dead guy, Casper eats a lot of healthy food, plenty of broccoli and carrots. Surely it's a bit late to be keeping an eye on his diet. Honestly, it's pretty difficult to run out of health. It's a bit of a wasted mechanic that feels like it's been forced in just to add some element of jeopardy. But this game doesn't really need it. The strength of the game is in the exploration, and I generally had a good time playing it, even if contemporary reviews were not so kind, with criticism being directed at boring gameplay and lackluster graphics, which seems a bit harsh.
Hang on a minute, look at this. A haunting 3D challenge. The graphics technically aren't 3D at all. There's not a polygon in sight. It's all 2D, so what can I say? I take it all back. Total scam. 1 out of 10. Game ruined. Worst of all time. But, maybe not. Actually, in all seriousness, I don't mind this game. It's a pretty decent little adventure title. It's not perfect, but for a licensed game in the mid-90s, it's pretty much as good as you're gonna get, especially for a kid's title. And yeah, okay, sure, the graphics are technically 2D and it says 3D on the cover, but two-dimensional graphics from 1996 have aged a hell of a lot better than 3D ones have. So I'll take this any day of the week. Now, we're going to move on and see what the Game Boy has to offer.
This adaptation was published by Natsume Incorporated and developed by Bonsai Entertainment, who I don't think I've ever heard of before. Straight away, it has to be said, this is pretty basic, even by Game Boy standards. It starts off promising enough. The manor in the opening scene looks pretty cool. When you go inside, it looks fairly detailed, but you only ever see this when slowly watching Casper travel between rooms. Each room you enter has 4 doorways, and each of those doorways leads to a minigame. When you beat each minigame in a room, you get to traverse to the next room, and so on. So the whole game is just a series of minigames. Not a bad idea in and of itself, but there are plenty of other games out there that really nail this concept. Casper just falls a little bit short. There's 4 primary games you'll be seeing a lot of. One where you bounce books into a returns box very slowly. One where you use a reticle to shoot at weird blobs. There's a single screen ladder side-scroller. I was going to say a platformer, but you can't jump. You can use a shovel to dig holes that temporarily disable the ghostly trio, so that's something different, I suppose. And then there's this one, which took me a while to figure out what was going on. You just have to put the right objects in the right places to trigger the correct sequence of events to occur. I have no idea what just happened. There are a couple of other games that pop up here and there, but it's mostly these 4, with the difficulty ramping up slightly as you progress through. It's somehow both a brief and slow dragging experience. You can easily beat the whole game in around 30 minutes, but each individual minigame feels very slow-paced and tedious to play through. Just a game that no longer has much of a place in this world. Portable gaming has moved long past this. The Super Nintendo also has a completely different offering. Again published by Natsume, but this time developed by Absolute Entertainment, in what would be their final video game, releasing a year after they folded in '95. By this point they had absorbed Imagineering, developers of A Boy and His Blob. Why am I bringing that up? Well, Casper on the Super Nintendo uses the same kind of gameplay. A blob clone, blob-like, basically an escort mission for an entire game. You get dropped right in, no intro cutscene, anything like that. Just pick your difficulty, and it's time to go. You control Casper, and Cat follows you around. You transform into objects that you find lying around the manor that allow you to clear the path for Cat to move on to the next room. Basically the jelly bean system from A Boy and His Blob. You can keep track of where you are on the map screen, and Casper can scout adjacent screens by floating through the walls. He just can't interact with anything unless it's in the same room as Cat. Still, it's nice to have some form of ghostly power, even if you still get blocked by the locked doors for some reason. There's plenty of going back and forth, which can be a pain as every screen resets when you return. I wound up getting stuck fairly quickly. I found a plunger in a room with Stretch, which I assumed was supposed to help me fight him, but it didn't really seem to do much of anything. I tried to backtrack and use it on random objects, to no avail, until I realised you very specifically have to go for Stretch's face. After this, it just led to an insignificant room with a locked door. I go back to find that Fatso's now turned up. I fight him off by shooting at him with a bottle, and from here is where I can't figure it out. If I return to that room, I have to fight Stretch again. Neither door seems to have been unlocked, so I'm just wandering about aimlessly. I think the mirrors serve a purpose, but I press a bunch of buttons and nothing seems to happen. You might want to give this a go if you are into this kind of puzzle game, but it's not really my thing. I guess blob-likes aren't for me. Now, considering this is a pretty late release for the Super Nintendo, I was surprised to learn that Casper had a completely unique game developed for the Super Famicom in Japan. This time developed by Natsume. That is, Natsume Co. Limited, not the same company we've been dealing with so far. Apparently, they split into two separate companies in '95, one in the United States and one in Japan, both keeping the same name just to be confusing for no good reason. Well, I suppose they each wanted the name value, but anyway, the first step with this game is to find an English translation, which thankfully exists in a mostly working form. It's another game where it's both Casper and Cat, but this time we control Cat. She wants to find her dad, Casper wants to find the hidden treasure in the manor, so they agree to team up. We're back to more of an adventure with a sprinkle of action, not unlike the PS1 game, but not totally the same. Add the isometric view into the mix, and it reminds me a lot of action-adventure titles you'd find on old home computers like the ZX Spectrum. Wander about the manor, solve room puzzles, find keys to open doors with the corresponding shapes, occasionally encounter an enemy that you can choose to fend off by throwing baseballs, which are in limited supply, or just dodge and run to the next room, which is often the quicker and easier option. Oh, and don't forget to save your game by using one of these recording machines you'll find in certain save rooms. All very Resident Evil before Resident Evil. The manor is massive, with countless rooms to explore, full of objects to examine, which Cat does by bobbing her head towards them and making a blub noise like she's a fish. It's worth checking absolutely everything everywhere though. Even the treasure you find serves a purpose. You see, you can actually control Casper sometimes, but you have to be standing on a star, which are few and far between, and it's only for a limited time period. The timer itself recharges over time, but the treasure will increase the maximum amount of time that it can be charged to. When playing as Casper, you can go through locked doors without a key, and you can't fall down any holes, which, needless to say, can be fairly useful. There are also items you can find that make the game considerably easier, such as the radar that unlocks the map screen, as well as one that marks what rooms the enemies are in on the map. These alone are essential for navigating the manor, as you won't see much change on an aesthetic level. Many rooms look close to or even completely identical to one another, so getting lost is not difficult. This is one of those games that if you know what you're doing, you can breeze through it in an hour or so. If you don't, it's going to be a lot of aimless roaming, checking every nook and cranny in every room you enter, and getting real tedious after a while. So really, it's all down to the adventure. It's an exploration game. Once you've done it once, you're probably not going to want to do it again because you already know what to expect. Listening to what I say and watching this footage, you're probably going to know already whether or not you'd like it. I'd say whether it's your thing or not, it's definitely superior to its Super Nintendo cousin. This just offers a little more. So if you do like what you're seeing, I'd say it's worth a shot. Now we are well into 1997 and find our way back onto the PC for Casper, the interactive adventure. Developed by Morningstar Interactive, who didn't seem to last for a particularly long time, and published by Wizardworks, who lasted a tad longer. This very mid-90s outing acts as a sort of sequel to the movie. I suppose it'd be more appropriate to say it's set after the movie takes place, as opposed to being some kind of straight adaptation.
I'm glad you're here. I could use some help. Normally, my 3 uncles are the only other ghosts around here, and I can handle them no problem. Then, all of a sudden, this mean ghost lady shows up. Her name is Kerrigan. She has unfinished business with me ever since I tricked her out of the ultimate treasure. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, I've been pretty lonely ever since Dr. Harvey and Kat went on vacation. So all my fleshy friends decided to cheer me up with a surprise party. Then Kerrigan showed up and used a magic spell.
Kat and Dr. Harvey are on vacation. Casper's fleshy friends came over but got turned into ghosts by Kerrigan. The solution is a point-and-click adventure. Not too dissimilar in its approach to Myst, but not exactly Myst, if you catch my drift. The primary focus is gaining access to as much of the manor as possible in order to take photos of ghosts you find, who you can then re-flesh. Naturally, the manor is full of locked doors, obstacles, and the ghostly trio blocking the way, all of which can be overcome by using various objects you find just lying around. Put them in your magic backpack, and Casper can transform into them. I'll give credit where credit's due, at least they've given some explanation as to how the backpack can carry so many large items. It's magic. It's a magic backpack. Why not? It's more than most adventure or, heck, any genre of game actually gives us as to how we can carry around so damn much.
You found a red key. Let's put it in your backpack.
The game is fine. It's a fairly typical example of what you would expect from a PC game aimed at children from that time period. This is another example of one that I enjoy purely because it's the kind of thing I grew up with, so I have the advantage of nostalgia. It's a tad more advanced than Big Brainy Book, and by that I mean you do have to do some basic critical thinking and problem solving. But like Big Brainy Book, it's more of a hassle than it's worth to get it working on modern machines. Still, a fun little time capsule, a peek into a world that doesn't quite exist anymore.
Yes!
At this point, we move on a little bit. It's been a few years since the movie got released, so we're going to start seeing some Casper video games based on other Casper content. It's 1998, and we're going to look at 2 PC games that come out both that year, and both from the same publisher, SoundSource Interactive. Casper the Animated Activity Center, and Casper the Animated Early Reader.
The Casper Animated Activity Center was developed by WayForward, believe it or not, and is based on, or more accurately, loosely connected to, the direct-to-video movie Casper: A Spirited Beginning, which was, let's just say, poorly received. As for this game, well, it's aimed at ages 3 to 7, which probably won't surprise you based on the footage. It's a small minigame collection, and the goal is to collect 15 Casper coins to unlock the bonus game. We've got a rotating squares puzzle, which takes a few seconds, mix and match where you create the same ghost as the picture, also a few seconds of work, goo toss, which is basically playing whack-a-mole with your mouse, and probably the most fun out of all the games, Fatso's Kitchen, where you have to add the correct ingredients to his mixing bowl based on not-so-cryptic clues, a classic sequence memory game in the form of a clock, beat these, get coins, 1 coin for easy, 2 for medium, 3 for hard. After the minutes of hard work and anticipation, you'll unlock the final game, Kibosh's game, the be-all end-all, the final boss of the Animated Activity Center.
Here we go. We're inside Kibosh.
And it's a jigsaw puzzle. An insultingly easy jigsaw puzzle at that, even considering the age range. It's the easiest minigame in a collection of easy minigames. And that's it. It probably took me longer to talk about than to play through it, so I hope I managed to get enough footage, otherwise I'm going to have to loop some and hope you don't notice. Look, it's fairly adequate for the target audience, by the standards of the time at least, but it wouldn't be long before there are a ton of web browser games that offer more in terms of content, quality, and even educational purposes than this, let alone what kids can access on a smartphone or tablet in modern days. Onto its sister game, Casper, the Animated Early Reader. Same publisher, but different developer, Digital Media International, who only have 5 games to their name, all from the late 90s, and all kids' activity centre style games. Based on it being called an early reader, I was expecting something akin to a visual novel, just like a digital kids book. What we actually have is effectively the same concept as the activity centre we just looked at.
Hi, I'm Casper's friend, Wendy. There are a whole bunch of fun activities we can play together while you're here. Just move your pointer over the place you'd like to visit. I will tell you each place's name when you roll the pointer over it. When you find a place you want to go, just click on it. It's easy. When you finish playing a game, click on the arrow at the bottom of the screen to come back here. Be sure to keep track of the Casper coins you earn for completing activities. When you have enough, you can go to my magic mirror and watch movies of me and my friends.
It's like the same basic pitch was given to 2 different teams, and we're seeing what each one came up with. This one is based on a different Casper movie, Casper Meets Wendy, as in Wendy the Witch, and yeah, it's a minigame collection that sees you collecting Casper coins. Key differences here are that the games are all based on literacy in some form, so we've got spelling, grammar, phonics, all of that kind of thing. And this time, for some reason, the games never end. You just play them until you want to move on to another. There's the classics, like a word search, and a very basic crossword. You got a hangman clone in here that sees Fatso slowly building a pipe to pour goo onto Wendy whenever you get a letter wrong. You got a couple that are based on making grammatically correct sentences, one where each word is a train carriage that need to be linked in the correct order, one where you're given a selection of words to add to a sentence template with animations to act out each element. Then the final 2 games are based on phonics, so a traditional matching pairs game, but you're matching objects based on what vowel sound is present in the word. And finally the Haunted Maze, where you get given a word, and you have to select the door that has a word that rhymes with it. Once you collect your coins, you can enter the movie theatre and purchase clips from Casper Meets Wendy that you can watch. So if you like watching a movie with a magnifying glass, as a random selection of short clips with absolutely no context, this may very well be the experience for you. Oh, and they're pay-per-view as well, so you're forking up more coins if you want to view the same clip more than once. The Animated Early Reader has a little bit more to offer than the Activity Centre. The games are a little bit more involved and do require a bit more thinking, but it still suffers from being completely obsolete by modern standards.
You're a really good cook.
We enter the millennium with another game on the PS1, Casper, Friends Around the World. Developed by Real Time Associates Incorporated, which sounds like a finance firm or something. But anyway, this one doesn't appear to be based on any one particular piece of Casper media, just the franchise as a whole. We start up with our most elaborate cutscene so far,
He's a disgrace. In all my years, I have never seen a ghost so chummy with fleshies. Time to teach Casper a lesson. Ah, yes, here
The basic gist is Kibosh has teleported all of Casper's friends across the planet, so Casper needs to go and find them in order to play with them again. This takes the form of a 2.5D platforming side-scroller. More traditional, but less creative and definitely behind the trends for the year 2000. Despite the cover art, Casper actually has legs this time, and is heavily restricted by the laws of physics. Your movement consists of a jump, no surprise there, a rarely used and very slow crouch, they must have been proud of this animation because it takes forever, throwing balls of ectoplasm as a means of offense, and floating, which consumes its own energy bar that regenerates over time, so no going through walls and you can only fly for a few seconds. Some ghost Casper is. The 2.5D elements come into play as you can move forwards and backwards occasionally, as opposed to just left and right. It's not always obvious where you can do this, it mostly just depends on what level you're in, as some incorporate it far more effectively than others, with clear markers and even multiple paths to take. Other levels, however, will have things like holes that you need to float over, even though it's clear that Casper could have just walked around it and not risked a second death. It just seems a bit silly in terms of game design. Don't set going forward and backward as a standard, only to restrict it when it makes the most sense for the character to use it. If you happen to find a massive book hanging about, you can enter it to enter a breakout style minigame with the goal to gather a map page. You need to find these maps in order to unlock the next level of the game, but you don't actually have to seek them out, because if you did reach the end of your level and rescue your friend without finding the map, you'll just go straight to the minigame anyway and get the map piece. So there's no actual incentive to explore or backtrack. The only advantage to finding the book that I can tell is that if you replay it, you'll get extra lives as a reward. There are a couple of boss fights with the ghostly trio. Beat them and they'll snap out of Kibosh's spell and you'll get a neat little cutscene.
Whoa, where am I? I'm sorry, Casper.
Crazily enough, this has two endings. A regular ending, and a good ending if you collect all of the friendship crystals in the game. Now I'm going to be honest, I can't be bothered to do that. It's too slow-paced and generally unexciting to justify revisiting levels and backtracking across the stage. Mix in the controls, which are often a bit unresponsive, not terrible, but jumping at critical moments can be a real pain, and the game just winds up really dragging, despite the fact that it can be beat in a couple of hours. Second example of a game that's not very long, but it feels it. Casper Friends Around the World is far from a disaster. What it is, though, is a fairly disappointingly uninspired experience for the year 2000. Well, speaking of uninspired, how about another game based on the original movie? Except now, we're 5 years removed, and hardly anyone cares anymore. In 2000, Interplay go and release a Game Boy Color version of Casper, as in 1995 movie Casper. And no, it's not just the original Game Boy game we played earlier, with a few pretty colours put on top. It's actually an attempt to port the PS1 game we played earlier, and a surprisingly loyal one at that. Yeah, the cutscene slideshows are not the prettiest. Yes, the in-game map looks like something a crappy AI would generate if you asked it to draw Tetris. And yes, you have to watch the whole screen cut away to tell you you've picked up an item every single time instead of just using some kind of text box. None of that will completely take away from the fact that they have managed to get a game that originally graced the PS1, Saturn and 3DO onto a Game Boy Color cartridge. It's the same layout for the most part, same puzzles, same items, a few of the same abilities, same hazards, you get the idea. It's scaled down a bit, some areas are not present, some of the abilities are removed, but for a port onto much weaker hardware, there's been some effort put in here to give you at least a similar experience. It wasn't the most well received of games. Contemporary reviews note it as confusing and boring, which doesn't come as much of a surprise given what was possible by the year 2000, and the vast majority of people who had reviewed it at the time hadn't likely done what I have just done, which has come straight from the home console version of the game into this port. So I have a bit of an advantage. I know what to expect and generally know where to go and how to play. I wouldn't say I have many strong feelings here. I don't mind this game. It doesn't bother me. I appreciate any attempt to port something onto weaker hardware, but I can't help but wonder what the point of it is.
Enter the era of the PS2, and we've got 3 whole games to look at. Well, this one comes a little bit later. We've got 2 whole games to look at right now.
Casper Spirit Dimensions comes along first, releasing in 2001 on the PS2 and also a year later on the GameCube. Developed by Lucky Chicken Games and published by TDK, who both primarily at that point in time worked on licensed games. There's not much messing about, no real opening cutscene, just start game and get right into it. Our first truly 3D adventure. Very exciting. Well, that excitement wears off pretty quickly once you attempt to move. The first thing you're going to need to do is try to get to grips with the controls. They are the reverse of what you'd expect. So the left analog stick moves the camera, or what direction you're facing, and the right analog stick actually moves Casper. Turning is unnecessarily slow unless you hold R1 to speed it up to what I would consider a normal speed, and then when you strafe with the right analog stick, it's lightning fast in comparison. I wind up shooting about all over the screen, losing track of where I am, stuck up against walls, floating about in total darkness. It's not a great start. Inside the manor, Wendy explains that Kibosh is back. He's taken over the spirit world. Yep, guess what? Casper's the only free ghost, so it's all up to him. She also has to explain Casper's moveset to himself, so I guess he's somehow forgot what he's capable of.
What can I do? I'm just a little ghost.
Great. There are a few things you should know before you get started. Casper, you have many powers. Your Spirit Blast will help you defeat Kibosh's ghostly minions. Your Comet power gives you a burst of speed. However, it doesn't last very long. Use your Ethereal Shield to avoid attacks and go through barred walls.
You can shoot at enemies with Spirit Balls, which have ice and fire upgrades. You can shield yourself from oncoming attacks, though this does effectively use a form of ammo, and shoot forwards really fast, which controls more naturally, but uses an energy bar that needs to recharge. The manor itself is our hub world. Wendy unlocks doors into different spirit worlds for Casper to enter and liberate from Kibosh's rule. Each world itself will split into different areas, kinda like little sub-levels, where you'll meet a character who'll give you a task to complete to gain an item to progress.
I must be dreaming. I see a small ghost before me.
Me? Work for Kibosh? No way! I'm a friendly ghost.
Ah, good.
I'm not sure how to get you free. I want to help, but I don't know how to get these locks off.
There are 4 keys. Each key was entrusted to a thief. Defeat the thieves, get the keys, and bring
It works fairly similarly to a lot of open-plan leveled 3D platformers from the time, except we're flying instead of platforming. Decent enough idea on paper, and it looks like it could be a really good game, but the controls make it a very messy experience. Even simple tasks like opening a chest requires concentration and precision to line up. The moment you're in an enclosed space with enemies, you can just forget about it. Trying to hold R1 so you can turn at a reasonable pace, whilst using R2 to attack and R3 to actually move, is hell on your fingers. I just strafe around in an uncontrollable panic. The cruelest part is when they make you go through a maze like this. I really gave it a good go. I wanted to like it. I had to move very carefully, use the ice attack to freeze enemies to make it easier to attack them, but I just couldn't get to grips enough to get through combat heavy areas. After a couple of game overs, I tapped out, only to discover that you can change the control scheme, but only from the main menu. Guess I'll have to give it another go. After sitting through the whole speech from Wendy again, it's better, but still not great. The sensitivity of the strafing still makes it difficult to move, turning is still slow, aiming is just as difficult, and the camera control is still inverted, because for some reason you can uninvert it, but only in the old control scheme. Reverse the analog sticks and you can't uninvert it. I don't get it, I don't know why. It's a shame, because all it needs is a bit of fine tuning for the controls. It's actually well presented, it looks and sounds good for the time, and would probably be a half-decent action-adventure game for kids if it just controlled smoothly.
Okay, so I get that I did say we were going to be looking at 2 PS2 games right now, but I do have to pause that just to mention that yes, the 1995 movie is the biggest, most successful, most well-known piece of Casper media ever made. We all know that, but good God, we've got another game 7 years after it came out. So let's put a stop to the PS2 for now, and let's play Casper on the Game Boy Advance.
Right off the bat, this game gets at least a smidge of credit for including a tutorial. Not necessarily a common thing back then. Not really sure why it's its whole separate option, should have just been level 1 given that it explains the story too. Dr. Harvey and all the adults have been turned into zombies. You need to guide Dr. Harvey, as Casper, to the end of each stage to find a cure, whilst also rescuing children found along the way. The kids all seem happy enough though, not to mention that they are anatomically very different from Dr. Harvey. Honestly, I can't imagine they'd have much trouble defending themselves. Anyway, if you find one, yeet them off screen to save them, and carry on guiding Harvey. As Casper, you transform into numerous ghostly objects to assist Harvey past obstacles, environmental hazards, and counter the ghostly trio's attacks whenever they appear. Yep, you get it. It's another blob-like. You can turn into a plank for Harvey to walk across holes, a pillow for him to land on from great heights, though I'm often too late, sorry Doc, a fan to blow away Stinky's smelly projectiles, a mirror that apparently counters stretch, but I can't seem to get it to work, this bubble form, which apparently is a shield, hover it around Harvey like this and he'll be protected from Fatso's falling objects, and a monster form which will scare Harvey, dropping some of his life bar, but causing him to run briefly in a specific direction. Usually, you're going to use this to get him to travel in the correct direction. There are also items and levers to interact with to adjust the environment to Harvey's needs. This one feels like it has a lot of potential. Out of the escort mission-based Casper games I've played so far, it's let down though by being really slow-paced with exhaustingly large stages. There's only 5 stages in the whole game, but each one is such a tediously long experience, you'll be lucky to maintain enough patience to see you beyond the first level. If you do, the difficulty just gets more relentless, with all 3 of the ghostly trio wailing on Harvey and never-ending hazards. You'll really start to feel the limitations of the Game Boy Advance's control scheme too. Trying to scroll to select the right form, to activate it, to use it, all in a short notice, can often feel impossible, and it all just becomes a panicked, jumbled mess. And then you just discover that you're still miles away from the end. A bit disappointing here, a game with potential. Had it just kept the same gameplay, but shortened down the levels, and focused the puzzles a little bit more, this could have been a real gem for the Game Boy Advance. This time, however, it just wasn't meant to be. Okay, back on track. It's Casper and the Ghostly Trio for the PS2, just like I promised, from 2006, so a fair gap between this and the previous game. Developed by Data Design and published by Blast Entertainment, who appear to have often been blasted for their low-quality shovelware releases, so not promising from the get-go. What's up with this main menu? Could it be any more boring? It's just a picture of a library and play game as the only option. If there's only one option, what's the point? Oh, okay. Well, what was the point of that at all? At least the music is okay. Get used to it though, because it's the only music you'll hear for the whole game. You get what you see. It is a 3D action platformer of sorts, in a very primal form. Casper is about as unghostly as he gets. No flying, no going through walls, no special powers, just jump, have a brief glide, and throw blue balls at enemies. Maybe his massive head is weighing him down. The goal is to find all the keys in the level to open the door to the exit. Some levels are slightly more open plan than others, but for the most part, it's pretty linear. Enemies are everywhere and encompass a whole range of spooky Halloween creatures, which doesn't quite hit as hard when you are already a ghost. Considering the sheer number of them, all of these enemies take way too many hits to kill. Just ignore them and keep moving. They're not particularly accurate anyway, so they rarely pose a real threat. Plus, there's plenty of hearts dotted around to increase your health if you do get hit. Save the fighting for the few enemies that you're required to beat to unlock doors and progress. When you do make it to the end of the level, you'll be given a side-scrolling section to play through. It's one of those where the screen keeps moving with or without you and will engulf you if you don't keep up. I don't really understand what the point is. You can just skip this and go to the next proper 3D stage without any form of penalty. I'd say these were filler, but the real filler are the loading screens. For a game this small and simple, they take forever. Pretty useful when you're making a YouTube video and need to take some notes, but otherwise it's ridiculous. If the only thing Blast Entertainment were known for was shovelware, this certainly doesn't change the narrative. Short, basic, rushed out, and worst of all, it's boring. The Ghostly Trio and Wendy are completely unseen until the very last level, despite the former being in the title of the video game. This certainly isn't the type of game that I feel like I'm inspired to beat, so I guess I'm never gonna see them, and I'm not even disappointed. I'm probably the only person on the planet playing this game right now, and that's still one too many.
If this has all felt a little bit too modern for you, between 2007 and 2008 we get 4 educational CD-ROMs come out for the PC. Yes, I know I'm holding up 3, but this one is a double pack.
All 4 are published by Compedia, who pretty much specialised in educational PC programs. I think the first one released is Mystery in the Castle, though to be honest it doesn't matter too much, you'll see what I mean. Some kid has kicked his ball into a building that is clearly not a castle. For no reason, the window shuts behind it. So it's up to Casper to float inside and find the 7 front door keys so he can retrieve the ball. You see, this ball has the signatures of all of this kid's best players. So I guess he's the coach or something. Honestly though, who talks like this?
Here's what happened. I was playing with my ball when suddenly it went straight through the open window of one of the rooms in the castle. Trouble is, it's not just any ball. It's been autographed by 2 of my best players. The window has been shattered by the wind, and the door is locked. How am I going to get my ball back?
The game itself is, as you probably guessed by now, a minigame collection. You can hop between 3 screens and point and click on objects to find games. Really, it's just an elaborate menu system. Click an object, you get a game to play. They're all bare basic, matching puzzles, simple clicking tasks, matching colours, matching images, matching shadows. Yeah, really, just match stuff most of the time. I think you get the idea. It's supposedly educational, but by the time a kid can figure out how to use a mouse and keyboard effectively, they are likely going to be beyond needing to learn what the colour blue is. One of the games is a basic paint-like program. Problem is, we're talking late 2000s here, so the actual MS Paint software is already more impressive than this. In this game, you have to hit these little balls with a hammer before they hide under the bed. What am I supposed to be learning here? The games never tell you when a key has been unlocked. I almost played Matching Shadows forever just waiting for something to tell me I was done. Once you have unlocked the door, you're given the option to play through again to unlock a cartoon. I did not.
I've got a surprise for you. Play the games and you'll get a part of a cartoon in each. When you've collected all the parts, you'll be able to watch the cartoon. Wow!
The next one that came out, I think, is Casper the Enchanted Forest. The same game, really, just a different setting with more minigames. This time, a monkey has stolen a picture. This guy here is totally unfazed by the presence of a ghost in the jungle, and actually enlists Casper's help in finding pieces of his picture. More minigames, another paint clone. Some games here seem to be a little bit more difficult compared to Mystery in the Castle, even though on the box, it suggests a lower age group. I'm thinking they were just making this up as they went. Speaking on the box, on the back of each of these we get a long list of skills your kids will supposedly learn playing these games. Critical thinking, problem solving, reasoning, logic. If only I'd been playing this instead of going to school. So yeah, I think they're reaching a little bit. Casper the Magic Toy Store is up next. Now we're collecting batteries for a toy train.
Hi, it's good to see you. Maybe you can help me. The train's batteries are flat. Without the train, the sick doll won't be able to get to the doctor and the animal band won't be able to get to the show. Who's going to...
The main difference here is instead of being able to flick between 3 different screens to pick our games, we just get one. Otherwise, it's the same thing. Yeah, games are different, but look at them. Not really much to say. Last up is Casper the Spooky Alley. It's in an alley. It's a bit run down. I don't know if I'd say it's spooky though. And now you collect puppies. Out of all of them, these games feel the most advanced, but not by some massive leap. This one is recommended for the ages of 6 to 8. You know, for my 8th birthday, I got Metal Gear Solid. Little did I know I was missing out on this incredible opportunity to fine-tune my memory development.
Frosting.
In all seriousness, these 4 games should have just been one big package. Selling them separately is unnecessary and a bit of a money grab, regardless of how much these were originally sold for. Remember, this is 2007 to 2008, a point where Flash games online were more complex, enjoyable, and educational than anything we get here. Low effort, way out of date, not worth the time, and doesn't really have anything to do with Casper beyond his random presence. At around this time, Casper gets a straight-to-TV movie release by the name of Casper's Scare School, which itself developed into a 50-plus episode television series which ran on Cartoon Network. And I'm sure you figured out there's only one reason I'd bring this up, and that's because, yeah, we get video game adaptions. Yeah, plural, we get adaptions. Casper's Scare School is released in 2008 on the PS2, so that's the PS2 post-PS3. It shares a developer and publisher with Casper and the Ghostly Trio, our previous PS2 venture, and it's immediately noticeable from the menu screen alone. Once again, a bare basic story is told via paragraphs of text as levels load up. From the get-go, it feels familiar. The assets are recycled almost entirely from Ghostly Trio. Even this level layout is the same. In this case though, we need to find 30 items that have fallen out of Casper's school suitcase. Typical school stuff, you know, portraits, spinning pottery, clothing, which I'm sure Casper makes the most of, and books? Oh no wait, that one actually makes sense. Just a small timed treasure hunt. Nothing gets in your way except perhaps the controls. Somehow, despite everything coming from Ghostly Trio and having the same developers, the controls are way worse. Janky, unresponsive, delayed, Casper gets stuck on objects and doorways, the camera will do whatever it pleases, so get used to the odd extreme close-up of Casper's face or other body parts. It's genuinely frustrating to play and leaves me wondering, why oh why can nobody make 3D Casper control smoothly? Which polygonal god did he get on the wrong side of? Especially in 2008. Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, Level 2 appears to come from a totally different game. It's like I leapt through dimensions midway through playing or something. We're now flying a ship, very poorly as you can imagine, and it's like there's someone with a second controller trying to play the game at the same time. The idea is, effectively, this is the school bus, and we're getting all of Casper's classmates. All that really means is navigating this hideous-looking outside world to 6 specific points on the map in no particular order. It probably took me longer to talk about this level than it did to beat it. So what's the next level going to be? Well, we're showing off the developer's skills here and keeping things multi-genre. Now it's a race, featuring some more reused assets. Yes, it still controls horribly, but it's more manageable when you are not having to be so precise. There are obstacles that block the route, but they phase in and out of existence. It's like they're acknowledging that Casper should be able to just float right through them, but in this case it's only if the objects feel like it. Can't forget the lake of green slime, of course. You could slowly attempt to clumsily jump from platform to platform, or you could just let the slime launch you in the air towards the destination. The game makes it look like it's hurting you, but there's not actually any downside. There's no health bar or anything, you don't get any kind of penalty, and it's a race, there's no time to lose. Make it onto the 4th level, and it's just another race. This one's a bit more annoying due to having narrow corridors and doorways that you can get stuck on. Honestly, the best part of this level is watching the game struggle to play itself. Even the NPCs get stuck. So now, at this point, you can tell they started to get lazy, or should I say, somehow they got even lazier than before. As yes, Level 5 is another race, but with a big twist. It's the hurdles. Yep, our first actual class in Casper's Scare School. This is the only one that actually took me a few tries to get right, mostly thanks to awkward jumping. Time it wrong and you get caught on top of the hurdle and lose your place. Once you figure out the weird timing though, it'll be a fairly dull experience and quite quick to beat. Now we move on to Level 6. It's another race. This time you're racing against Thatch, the school bully. He's turned your friends to stone, so you have to find them along the way to turn them back. I actually had the pleasure of the game crashing midway through this stage. I would go back, but believe it or not, this was the final level of the game anyway, so it's not like there's much more to see. The footage I recorded came to just shy of 35 minutes, and that's including breaks to take notes. I don't say this lightly when I say this might just be one of the worst games ever made. It should be in the conversation at the very least. No one ever mentions it, so I'm bringing it up now. Consider the fact that half, if not more, of the assets are recycled from the Ghostly Trio, and that's not a bad thing in and of itself. Like, why not reuse that stuff if you're the same developers? But you've already got half of it made for you, and the best they came up with was 6 tiny levels, averaging 5 minutes each. Not to mention it starts out looking like it's going to be at least a bit of variety. It winds up with it just settling on being a racing game, and a shockingly bad one at that. I don't really understand what the point of this game being made is at all. Was there really much of a demand? Well, we got it anyway, and even half an hour is too much time to waste on something like this. Avoid it at all costs. As for me, instead of avoiding it, I'm going to play the Nintendo DS version as well. With this one it gains a subtitle, Classroom Capers. There's a simple slideshow giving us the story and gameplay instructions, which is more than I could say for the PS2 game. Actually, it's a completely different game. Sadly, it's not much better. The game is played purely through the touchscreen, and as Casper you attend 3 different classes on repeat on loop. Science, History and Gym, in that order. The classes don't really matter though, as they all play exactly the same. The teacher will show you an object on one screen. Casper then has to obtain that said object and sit at his desk in order to gain a green tick. Gain 4 of these ticks within the time limit, you pass the class. So what that actually looks like from a gameplay point of view is you'll see random objects appear on the floor. Pick up whatever object appears, and one of your classmates will show up to say that they want it, but they'll give you another item in return. So you just keep swapping items with your classmates until you have the one that you want. Then you go sit at the desk and get your tick. You can have an object confiscated and thus will have to start that segment again. This will happen if you get caught by the teacher not at your desk. They'll have these little areas that flash where they're looking, so you got to go sit back down during those periods to make sure you don't get caught. It's basic, it's different, I'll give it that, but it is very, very basic. As you progress, a few extra elements do get added. At one point, a gargoyle starts to roam the classroom trying to catch you out of your seat, and the number of trades you need to make will keep increasing. It never really gets to a point of complexity or challenge that it would be considered in any way a fun or memorable puzzle game. You quickly get bored of these same 3 classrooms on repeat, and the game can be completed in roughly an hour. It's more low-effort shovelware, and it's not worth your time. Unfortunately, I'm sad to say that the next Casper game is another Scare School game. Now, this is Casper Scare School Spooky Sports Day, and for the first time on my channel, I'm actually looking at a Nintendo Wii game, released in either 2009 or 2010 depending on where you were in the world. So, it has sports in the title, and it's for the Wii. It's a collection of minigames, 7 of them in fact. Most are locked to start with, which is really unnecessary. Just let us play the games we want, but whatever. The first one, which is the only one you're allowed to play, you have to bounce the ball as high as possible, like kind of keepy-uppies. Gameplay is not dissimilar to Doodle Jump, if you remember that. The ball just goes wherever you point the Wiimote, so it's dead easy. I got as high as it would let me, and I still had over a minute left to bounce aimlessly. Now I've unlocked some more games, such as the Egg and Spoon race. Hold the Wii remote like a spoon, tilt it to maintain balance, and jump over holes that exist for no reason, and shouldn't really matter to a ghost anyway. In this case, I will go as far to say that they are using the whole motion control gimmick. That's already more thought put into this one than the previous 2 Scare School games. Next up we've got soccer, except the spooky twist is you have to hit the keeper, not the goal. Yeah, I know, real scary stuff. I don't know how I got through it. But to be honest, it's less spooky and just more Casper being a bit of a jerk. All of that's irrelevant though, I don't know why they changed the rules, because you don't actually aim at all. You click on a ball that's on the ground, and then you trace whatever dotted line appears on the screen within the time limit. That's it. Let's move on to the people chase. Get it? People, steeple, they rhyme, it's a play on words, it's very clever. Well, it's a race with obstacles. What more did you expect? Each obstacle has a slightly different method of being bypassed. Sidestep, jump, or scare them away in the case of the cardboard cutout people. How about some scareboarding? This is the first one I couldn't get the hang of. Build up speed, take air, press the buttons in the correct order. It reads really simple on paper, but I just couldn't get it to work whenever I tried. Not that I'm going to lie to you and say that I tried for particularly long, though. Sports Day apparently goes off the rails when you find yourself dropping frogs into cups. This one is odd. There's technically more to it. You want the correct people to be taking the frogs, and there's other colours of frog you can get for higher scoring opportunities, but none of it seems to matter beyond just dropping the frogs in the cups. If you ignore everything else, you still comfortably get a high enough score to pass. As for the 7th game, Gymnasium, I couldn't get it to unlock. At 6 out of 7 games, I can say I feel like I've got more than enough to know that Spooky Sports Day is just not good. This is no Wii Sports, let's put it that way. At the same time though, it is a million times better than our last 2 encounters, so that's something. Not that it's over though, because there is another one. Spooky Sports Day also made its way over to the DS as well. On this occasion, it's actually the same as the Wii game, just adapted for the touch controls of the DS. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. I wouldn't say it has a massive effect on the overall experience, it's still pretty underwhelming. Performance is especially sluggish on the DS. They don't seem to have put much effort in porting it over and getting this game to run well on the handheld. One thing I did manage to do was actually play through the skateboarding game, which meant I unlocked the gymnastics game. It's effectively just a quick time event minigame that overstays its welcome like the rest of them. When I beat all the games, it unlocked a new round of slightly harder levels for each game, so I guess there's more progress involved than I originally thought. Nowhere near enough for me to actually recommend playing it though.
And that's it. That is every video game based on Casper that I can find. If you know any more, please let me know, but I think that's it. It's no surprise that it's around the 2010s that they stopped. It's that kind of era, late PS3, 360, that video game budgets start to ramp up a bit, and just licensing a franchise for the sake of it to make a video game no longer makes much sense. If there's one thing I did learn from this video, it's that they ran out of ideas for Casper pretty quickly. Most of it's either a very bare-bones minigame collection or an escort mission. The one that stands out to me that I might recommend would be the PS1 version, but take it with a grain of salt from me because I've always got that kind of nostalgia factor going in my favour. I'm always going to love it because I played it as a kid. But maybe that's the one you should try.